The film was never fictional and never documentary. It was always both at the same time. And that was a dream come true for me. I always thought this should be possible, but I always had to make an effort in fiction to make it feel like documentary, and in documentaries to make them feel like fiction. But here all of a sudden it happened.
오늘 소개해드릴 빈 벤더스 감독님은 독일의 영화 감독으로 라이너 파스빈더와 베르너 헤르소그 감독님과 함께 70년대에 뉴저먼 시네마를 이끈 감독님 중 한 분입니다. 뉴저먼 시네마를 간략하게 요약하자면 세계 2차 대전 이후에도 이어진 독일 기성세대들의 보수주의와 민족주의에 대한 거센 비판과 반발, 할리우드 영화의 범람, TV 보급과 경기 침체로 인한 자국의 영화 제작 축소 등으로 황폐화된 독일 영화 산업의 재건을 목표로 한 움직임입니다. 낡은 세대와 아버지의 영화는 죽었다. 1962년 서독 출신 영화인들이 발표한 오버하우젠 선언으로도 매우 유명합니다. 이렇듯 빈 벤더스 감독님의 영화 또한 독일 사회에 대한 회의적인 시각과 할리우드 영화의 영향을 바탕으로 픽션과 다큐멘터리를 넘나들며 인물의 내면을 깊이 탐구하고 있습니다.
Painter was early on, correct? When medicine was out, psychology was out, sociology was out.
Philosophy was out.
Philosophy was out.
Painting was in.
Painting was in, and Paris was in.
Paris was in because that's where you go when you want to become a painter.
Yeah.
And when you're cocky and when you think you can conquer the world, you go to Paris and you say, I'm a painter. And I had no finances to afford a heater or so, and I always slept in my coat and everything on me. And during the day it was unbearable, so I discovered there was one place where you could watch movies and be in the warm, and that was the Cinematheque. And one ticket cost 25 cents.
Incredible.
And I saw the entire history of cinema in about a year, more than 1,000 films. And that was the end of my painting career.
Where do you stand on that kind of self-education? Is that essential? Is that the only way?
I learned a lot from watching these 1,000 movies, and I tell you, I learned not so much from watching them, I learned a lot from making notes, because I realized after a while that when I stumbled back home into my room in the middle of the night, I had forgotten the first film I'd seen, and I only remembered the last one. And that was a pity, so I started to learn to make notes in the dark while I was watching them, and that was my film school.
최근에 개봉한 퍼펙트 데이즈 외에도 빈 벤더스 감독님의 대표작으로 사물의 상태, 파리 텍사스, 베를린 천사의 시, 부에나비스타 소셜 클럽 등이 있고요. 그 외에도 로드무비 3부작으로도 불리는 도시의 앨리스, 잘못된 움직임, 시간의 흐름 속으로 로드무비의 거장으로도 불리고 있습니다.
Well, the whole trick about shooting road movies is that basically, if you're on a road, becomes a story. So almost automatically, you have to shoot in chronological order. And that is what I love so much, to shoot a fictional story in the order of the story, so that any given moment you can steer left or right or change a script. And most movies, you write them before, and then your production manager tells you you have to shoot all these scenes on this week and then all these scenes on that week. And more than often you shoot the end in the beginning and the beginning in the end. So, but if you have a road movie, you start with the beginning and you end with the end. And that is beautiful. And
ich glaube, im Nachhinein ist noch eine andere Sache richtig wichtig gewesen für diesen Film, nämlich meine Theaterarbeit, die einzige überhaupt, die ich je gemacht habe, über die Dörfer. Eine Uraufführung, die ich in Salzburg gemacht habe. Die einzige Arbeit überhaupt jemals auf einer Bühne mit Schauspielern, die ganz intensiv war, eine schöne Erfahrung war und die mich als Regisseur zum ersten Mal Schauspielern gegenüber in eine ganz andere Position gebracht hat. Nämlich als Regisseur im Theater probst du wochenlang und machst Gott weiß was und hast alles im nötigen Sinne, machst das Licht und die Bühne und alles. Und dann geht das Ding los und du sitzt da wie einer im Zuschauerraum und es gehört dir nicht, es gehört denen auf der Bühne. Und was die dann machen darf, kommt anders. Es kann jeden Abend anders sein. Und das war für mich eine Wahnsinnserfahrung. Und ich glaube, ich habe hätte mich ohne diese Erfahrung mit Schauspielern mal so gearbeitet haben, nicht getraut, mit meinen Schauspielern, die ich dann für Paris, Texas hatte, so zu arbeiten, wie ich es gemacht habe. Das ist der erste Film, wo ich keinen Tag an ein Set gekommen bin und wusste, was für Einstellungen mache ich. Ich habe es mir verboten, irgendwie auch nur eine Einzelzeichnung zu machen. Ich wollte erst mit den Schauspielern vor Ort und Stelle die Szene proben und erst, wenn die Schauspieler wussten, was wir für eine Szene machen, dann wollte ich mich an meinen Kameramann wenden und sagen, so, wie drehen wir das jetzt? Das habe ich noch nie gemacht vorher. Und das hätte ich auch ohne die Theaterarbeit nicht gemacht. Und ich glaube, Paris, Texas ist deswegen so gut geworden, weil er voll und einzig aus den Rollen entstanden ist und aus den Schauspielern gekommen ist. Da ist keine einzige Einstellung, die wir gemacht haben, weil es irgendwie, obwohl der Film ist schön, da sind schöne Bilder drin, da ist keine einzige Einstellung drin, die wir gemacht haben, weil wir dachten, hier kann man was Tolles drehen. Das ist alles nur, um diese Geschichte so bestmöglich zu erzählen, nur aus den Rollen raus.
With Paris, Texas, we did have to write a script, Sam and I. But again, a little bit of a dirty trick. We only wrote the first half because our idea was Sam was going to travel with me and he would get to know the actors and the shoot. And then we would write the real second half as we went along. So the second half of our script was just baloney, and it was just in order to get the financing, but we never intended to shoot it. And then it was a little delayed, the film, until our financing got together. And then something beautiful happened that turned out to be a disaster for me. Sam Shepard fell madly in love with Jessica Lange. And so instead of traveling with me and being the writer on my shoot, he decided to play opposite Jessica in a movie called Country. And I had to start shooting without my writer. And I shot the first half of the script, and then it all came to a grinding stop in Los Angeles. We didn't have any idea how we're going to shoot it, and we had to send everybody home. We had 2 weeks off, and I had to sort of invent a story on my own. And then Sam was busy even rewriting the other movie he was shooting on. And then eventually I told him the ending that I'd figured out, but I badly needed the dialogue for it. And I cannot write dialogue for an American character. If I write dialogue, then everybody speaks like me. So Sam really had pity on me and then really wrote the beautiful ending of Paris, Texas in a couple of nights. And then in one very long night, he dictated it to me and I wrote it all down. And the next day we continued shooting. So that's how we finished Paris, Texas.
I call it a sense of place. When you're on location, you have to know where you put your camera and you have to understand the place, and that translates into your setups and into your shots. If you don't have a sense of place, you'll find yourself lost. I saw Westerns over Westerns. Everything I loved was Western. So finally, when I had the chance to make a film there, the last thing I wanted was to be inundated with images of the West that I already knew, and I didn't want to make a film that was inspired by other movies, and I didn't want to film the West through the image of John Ford and Howard Hawks, Anthony Mann, and all the great Western directors. I wanted to see it for myself and wanted to be exposed to it as if I had never seen a movie, which is not so easy. You would say it's wishful thinking because I had seen this one. So I decided to do a long travel in the West and traveled on my own for months and months. So basically every dust road and every highway in the West. And in the end, I knew I could see it on my own.
My high school movie, Summer in the City, which was very much in the lines of John Cassavetes. I had admired John when I was in film school, and so my graduation film, Summer in the City, was very much a John Cassavetes copy in many regards. And the goalie's anxiety was owed a lot to Hitchcock, but it was just Hitchcock without the suspense. And the goalie and Scarlet Letter was David Lean for Poor. So I felt my 3 first ventures were all I had survived them, but none of them had what I expected for myself, had my own signature. It was Cassavetes and Hitchcock and God knows what, but not me. So I figured either I'd go back to painting or I'd make a movie that would prove to myself that I had my own handwriting, that I had it in me to make a film like nobody else would make it, and that was me. And I put it all on one card, and I wrote a little movie called Alice in the Cities, and it was my first road movie. I finally made my first real film, the one that I consider my first film as me, Wim Wenders, as a filmmaker. The three before were films after certain models, and I figured that didn't count.
My advice to a young artist, painter, photographer, filmmaker, video artist, whatever you do, nobody else can do that better than you. And you have to find what you can do better than anybody else and what you have in yourself that nobody else has in themselves. Don't do anything that somebody else, that you know deep in your heart somebody else can do better, but do what nobody else can do except for you.
So that in the end I realized the image could sometimes be in the way to tell the story. And sometimes, in order to tell the story right, you had to give up on some of your favorite images.
Is the intent more important than the mise en scène?
I think it is the intent. The intent is of utter importance. The intent is an invisible thing that is encrusted into every shot. Like in photography. I have this theory that in every photography you see the reverse angle of the photographer. It's invisible, but you see it. And you get an eye for it. And I think in films as well.
In many ways, at least once your film is shot, you have to be knowledgeable in marketing. A lot of great directors are not good at all at selling what they've done, and they'll give it to other people to do it. And sometimes it's a pity if you, as a director, you can't oversee what's happening to the film afterwards. If you make a beautiful film and somebody makes a lousy poster that gives the wrong image, and if somebody does the wrong campaign and cuts the wrong trailer, before you know it, the film is down the drain.
안녕하세요 여러분, 젊은 달입니다. 그동안 좋은 소식이 하나 있었습니다. 제 단편 너에 관한 단순한 사실들이 제4회 성북 청춘불패 영화제에 선정되었습니다. 예. 다른 작품도 아니고 이 작품을 많은 분들과 큰 스크린으로 감상할 수 있다는 사실이 매우 기쁩니다. 그래도 짧지 않은 시간 동안 좋은 영화를 찍고 좋은 감독이 되고자 많이 고민하고 다양하게 노력했었는데요. 정말 영화라는 작업은 경우의 수가 너무 많아서 저만의 색을 추려나가는 과정만으로도 아주 많은 시간과 시행착오가 필요했던 것 같습니다. 이번 단편도 사실 선정 여부와 상관없이 제 작업에 있어 큰 힌트를 얻었던 작품이었기 때문에 스스로 굉장히 만족하고 있었는데요. 이렇게 또 영화제 선정까지 되어서 감사하고 기분이 매우 좋습니다. 이번 오는 11월에 시간이 되시면 영화제에 놀러 오셔서 영화도 감상하시고 시간이 더 되신다면 저랑 같이 영화수다 나눌 수 있으면 좋을 것 같습니다. 그리고 10월 시네마클럽 6기 수강신청도 절찬 모집 중입니다. 그동안 쌓아온 영화적 작업에 대한 고민들을 중심으로 강연이 구성되어 있습니다. 커리큘럼의 주된 목표는 예술의 막연함을 드러내고 영화 창작의 실무적인 면에 더 집중해 작가의 영감이나 재능과 같은 추상적인 요소보다는 기술과 단련에 대한 이야기를 형성하는 것입니다. 때문에 작가로서 영화 작업이 막연하시거나 답답하신 분들에게 강력 추천합니다. 그럼 모두 항상 건강 유의하시고요. 좋은 하루 보내시기 바랍니다. 감사합니다.